recession, because nothing ever recedes in spirit. You see, it was a breaking up of the old energy so the new could finally come in. And it was necessary for that to be broken up and changed and the energy shifted, because negative energy cannot sustain a healthy financial basis. And that's what you're moving into. And will start to become more obvious as the years come upon us that you are moving into a financial solid foundation of integrity financially. And there will be more equality and honesty with the financial rearrangement of the economy and people's abilities to have the needs met financially. And no changes are coming. And so this time seems to be rather drastic for some. However, I would like to tell you that when Marilyn had her prophecy 20-some years ago about this, she was told at that time some very important information I would like to share with you today, because if you're going through difficult times and you're in this room, you obviously have an understanding of this, but just to reassure you, think of it as being in the eye of a hurricane. And the hurricane is the economic distress that's going on in the country and the world. But if you stay in the eye of the hurricane, you don't have to be whipped around by it, because as you stay in the center, you're centered with God and grounded with God, and you are protected and taken care of. So some of you in this room might feel that you are very fortunate to be blessed, and that the peace in your lives is not being disrupted by the economic turmoil of others. You see, it's for them to choose faith and trust to move to the center also. And hopefully some people will be awakened and realize that their real security comes from God rather than the economy or the money in their pocket. So as you are trusting more and more God, less and less of the economy disruption will affect you, and you will be not in that same disturbance, and more comfortable, feeling self-assured and self-confident that you are doing as well as possible, with your friends maybe not doing as well. And if you are in the eye of the hurricane and realizing the people out there are learning the lessons that were still necessary for them. So you are very blessed, probably sitting in this room today, to have that experience where it is not as difficult maybe for you as for others. But that spiritually is what is happening and why it's happening. You see, it will only take 2 generations to change the economy, the government, the politics. What your parents told you and what you told your children, and what they're doing with that different information they have gathered, is making the change. What your parents told you was what they were taught from years before, and it's passed through the family and down through generations. But with the changes in understanding and growing spiritually, the new generations coming in, and some of you know them to be the indigo children, some of them are crystal children, and rainbow children are coming in without the dense energy that you people or your relatives in the past have come in with. So they are not going through the same kinds of dilemmas as far as needing to address as much of their negative energy to release and move higher into ascension. They are higher up the ladder, so to speak. It's not really a ladder, but various levels of vibration. But as you move into higher vibrations, the denser, darker energy cannot sustain, and it has to leave. That's why the economy is changing, that greed cannot be sustained in a higher consciousness. It will not function. It will just absolutely dissipate. And it is leaving at this point in time. And many underlying laws are already in place. for this change to have stability, and we'll talk more about that at the end. But this change that's going on is because through approximately 60 years of your birth years, new philosophies, new beliefs, new understandings, more awakening can change that quickly. So it's like in spiritual time, a blink of the eye, we will have a new paradigm for government, a new paradigm for economy and financial status. And it is being blocked at this time by the elder statesmen in Congress. As you see, the older philosophies are not open to the newer open-mindedness is coming in with higher vibrations of spiritual love and equality and unity, and they still hold on to their old ways. So as we have younger blood coming into the government, into Congress, into various areas of your lives, as the old leaves and the new comes in, you are going to start seeing those shifts of attitudes of how laws are handled or deleted off the books or changed to be more fair and equitable. And in fact, Marilyn did a reading on a young boy recently where he was one of the new children that had come in purposely to be in legislative avenues to create the better laws that would be more supportive of all the people and the unity which we are coming into. And that was his purpose for coming in, was to be part of that newer blood, that younger paradigm that is bringing in healthier and happier ways for the next 1,000 years of peace. So you see, things are way underway for this all to change and happen. And it can do it in a very few years compared to what we've gone through in the past. Of why Jesus showed up 2,000 years ago was to proclaim this was possible, to bring the world into the light of God. And now we are at this point in time, which is what 2012 is about, we are at this time where the light of God will truly shine. One of the other things I wanted to explain, because some of you have heard so much, they call it putting a spin on words and terms and making situations politically correct. And I would like to further explain what you have been told is global warming is actually global cooling. You see, the scientists tend to look at cycles within their own lifespan. And this cycle that is going on is actually several generations of a cycle. And so each scientist tends to recreate the wheel, you might say, each time of their life experience, not looking back necessarily into historically what's going on in bigger patterns. This is a life cooling, planet cooling situation going on, whereby it started with the polar caps' melting to equalize the level of water on the earth. So in doing that, the water now is becoming of equal distance around the planet rather than weighted on the ends of the poles. That therefore changes the weight of water on the planet crust. And the weight change has caused the earthquakes and the volcanoes. And this will happen for a small time further. It is not totally readjusted, but the poles have shifted. And so in this cooling stage is also part of this preparation, this 2010 period of time. You see, 22 stands for duality, which is what we are moving out of. Planet Earth is leaving duality behind as we move into the grace of God. So the duality is shifting, and the one stands for a new beginning. So that shift is necessary for a new beginning. And that's the energy that is necessary from the catalytic energy of the 2010 together, providing and creating the emphasis that's moving forward into this year. It's interesting that you people have created a certain amount of peace in this lifespan. I mentioned it only takes 2 generations to change the thinking of the people. And if you look back 60 years, which is approximately 2 generations, who were your enemies? This is another example of how quickly things can change. You're not fighting Europe anymore. You're not fighting Japanese people anymore. In fact, that has become the strongest trade in your country, is with those countries that were at war with you 60 years ago. That's how soon the energy can shift and the knowledge can shift. And that now, if you think of it, you are driving their cars and using their appliances in your homes. So it can happen in a very short period of time. I wanted to say not only does the people shifting, but the earth consciousness, because of that, shifts. And that's part of the weather also. So you see, at a very long time, for a long time, the Kundalini and heart chakra of the earth, which is a sentient being, meaning it has consciousness, was centered in India and Tibet. And with these shifts of planet Earth and the consciousness shifts that are happening in the people, it's affecting the earth. Scientists today can now measure the magnetic energy of the earth as it moves its energy on a weekly, even hourly basis. They have the technology to do that. Would you be surprised that after 9/11 they could measure a deep grief and loss, and it affected planet Earth's energy? And with great celebrations, it was measured, and it will also affect the energy grid around the earth and the earth itself in consciousness. So the Kundalini of the earth is moving. And with that is going to be some of these weather changes also. It is moving down to the South Pole and proceeding back up around the South Pole to Chile and Peru is where it will be during the 5th dimension. So you see, there are so many kinds of changes occurring, and what you're told is not necessarily what's the accurate spiritual point of view, and that's okay. Some people just are, without the consciousness of spirituality, moving into healthier, better ways of living their lives, being more generous, being more kind. And that's what's coming, is that with our new times arriving, you are in the center of a 36-year transition into the 2012 is the middle of this transition. So you see, you are smack dab in the middle at this point, and the higher level of consciousness will take effect around October 2012. However, there's going to be a huge shift this coming month in March, and you should notice that one also, that by April it will seem quite different to you. These shifts are coming faster and faster as we approach 2012. And you are moving into higher awarenesses. If you have not figured that out, you might be more sensitive to these shifts and changes like Darcy was. She was just really